Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today is Tuesday, January 14th, and in a little bit, Mike Tomlin will speak to the media at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex heading down there. Myself will have a column off of that as we finish, or in the midst of, I should say, Steelers postmortem, talking about what went wrong, what changes will be made, what changes should be made. Seem to be a difference of opinion there on a few things, and that's what we want to talk about for the bulk of today's show. We'll get into some Penguins talk later, but again, going through a lot of Steelers stuff. I want to talk about something that Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, Teryl Austin, how this can be fixed. We'll see if it is. But first, I want to remind you that the show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with the insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the defense before switching over to quarterbacks. I know I touched on the quarterback situation yesterday. I have a fresh column about that at post-gazette.com. But defensively, there are a bunch of smaller changes I think the Steelers need to and will make. TJ Watt isn't one of them. I don't agree with that. He talked yesterday about his urgency to get it done here. Not that I thought that they would trade TJ Watt, but let's cross that one off the list, shall we? I do think they need to change some things in the secondary. If Joey Porter Jr. is your top corner, I guess I'm okay with that. I'd like to see them address the depth underneath. They need defensive line depth as well. The draft would be a good place to get that. But okay, let's step back a little bit because I think the issue is bigger in scope. And I think as we learn about the Steelers bringing back Mike Tomlin, the minimal changes that seem to be happening, they're going to have to do something somewhere. If I had to suggest or predict something, it would probably be defensive coordinator Teryl Austin. I think if you look at how the Steelers faded down the stretch and what part of their identity just didn't live up to its expectations, I'm looking at the defense. And if you spend that much money on a group, you expect it to be a difference maker, right? It has to be a difference maker, and it wasn't, especially in crunch time. And so we're going to look under the hood at all kinds of stuff and where it went wrong, right? They can improve on run defense down the stretch, how they react to certain plays. We talked about that ad nauseum Saturday night, the previous Baltimore game. There's a script for running all over them. I also think depth up front, that's something they have to address. But if they don't bring back Teryl Austin, here's what I think is important and what they need to do. Mike Tomlin doesn't need to have his fingerprints all over this defense. He has other things to worry about. I think it's an opportunity to make significant change. I expect Art Rooney II to meet with the media at some point, probably later this month. It's usually at the end of January. He's going to talk about doing things differently. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. I don't know how you all are going to feel about that. You might be frustrated because Art said the same thing last year about an urgency to win playoff games. They didn't. The same thing happened, and it seems like they're running it back. Well, they're going to have to revisit processes at that point, right? You would think. And to me, this is an area where you can easily change the way things happen. And it's an unfortunate thing for Teryl Austin, who, again, I could see losing his job because of this, and that stinks. I think he's a good man and a good coordinator. But you have to change the way you operate. You have to get more out of the defense. And part of that involves Omar. I've written and talked about that before. You're spending too much money on defense. Where the NFL is skewing more offensive, the Steelers need to get there. They need to plop some money down on their offense, get a better wide receiver, get a backfield complement to Jaylen Warren, and a couple other things. But defensively, scheme-wise, how they're planning, how they're preparing, giving a clear message. If you're going to retain Mike Tomlin, it should come with the caveat that you let the new defensive coordinator do his thing. Look around at other NFL teams, coordinators who are having success. I look at Ben Johnson a lot. I know it's a different kind of situation with him being on offense in Detroit. Do you think Dan Campbell's meddling in that, or do you think he's trusting him to do his job? I think any of us do better if we're trusted to do our jobs and not having somebody looking over our shoulder. And I worry that happens entirely too much on the Steelers side. So hire a new defensive coordinator, make those roster changes, but also restrict how much influence or try to put the head coach in a little bit better of a lane if that's who you're going to keep. All right, have a couple thoughts on the quarterback situation and want to touch on the Penguins briefly at the end of this podcast. But first, we have a message, the usual middle of the video message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Are you ready for an escape from the everyday? The Bradenton area on Florida's west coast is welcoming visitors. Our world-famous beaches are being restored to their pristine states. Beloved island businesses are bouncing back faster than expected, and our signature Floridian cuisine is just as fresh as ever. Don't wait. Start planning your visit today at BradentonGolfIslands.com. All right, so Russell Wilson talked yesterday. It was locker clean-out day on the south side, and he talked about wanting to be back and said that's the plan. That's what he expects. Now, another caveat, he said he hasn't met with Steelers management or anything like that. But, I mean, if that's where his head is at, I have a tough time seeing the Steelers are going to do a hard pivot away from that, especially if Mike Tomlin is in the same spot, which we, again, expect him to be. One of the things that Russ talked about and why he liked it so much here, number one reason was Mike Tomlin, but feels attached to the city, likes what they can do, feels there's a lot more there. I understand that's the plan, and that's how I started my column on the quarterback situation. I understand that's the plan. I just don't like it. It's nothing personal against Russ. I've actually enjoyed getting to know him, covering him, seeing him operate. I think he still has some ball left in him. I just don't think it makes sense for the Steelers if how, you're planning things, what the NFL looks like. Tweeted some stuff out, included this in my column. But if you look at the quarterbacks in the playoffs now, there's a mold. They can move. They're younger. They're high pedigreed picks. They enable their offense to do other exciting things. Josh Allen in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Jaden Daniels. I mean, I know that it's not a comprehensive list. Patrick Mahomes is his own animal. I mean, you've got two-time MVP. CJ Stroud is, again, not a great season, but you can see the mold there. Younger, exciting, have some height to him. Russ is an anomaly when it comes to this stuff, and that's why I'd go with Justin Fields. Another big reason why I would go with Justin Fields, at least you know with Justin Fields, and at least you know with the team. Pour some money into the offense, surround him with some weapons, a wide receiver, a legitimate, like a 1A, 1B for George Pickens type. Change the scheme, change what you're doing, but incorporate quarterback runs. Take advantage of what he can do. Have a more modern NFL offense. And then, you know what? If Justin Fields figures it out and he's good, that's a great solution to the problem. Steelers are in an excellent spot. And if you stink, well, it's kind of the reset year, right? I don't think a lot of people would be upset if the Steelers, let's say they bottomed out and went 6-11 next year, something like that. It would be a frustrating season, but what if it lands the quarterback of the future? What if it lands the next Ben? I mean, again, you'd prefer the latter, the former, right? You want them to succeed and win, but they're chasing this quarterback thing. And Russ he's an option. He's an option. But we're talking about a 36-year-old, and you're going to have to commit, $30 million, $25 million, multiple years on a contract? For somebody who doesn't throw across the middle, doesn't have great quarterback mobility, a lot of what he does falls outside of what's happening in the NFL. I just don't love it. I would rather save the money and spend those dollars elsewhere. Cornerback depth, wide receiver, stuff that I'm talking about, maybe defensive line, fix some other areas. And at the same time, I'm going to get a very important answer on how good my team is. I don't expect the Steelers to do this. I expect them to run it back with Russ because it's comfortable, but I don't have to like it. All right, last point is the Penguins. Something I would like to see with them because it's not going great. I don't know how much you've been following the Penguins. 5-2 losers on Sunday at PPG Paints Arena, 5-0 losers on Saturday at PPG Paints Arena. It's just not great. And one of the things that I think they need to change here is the goaltending. I'm a little confused why they're sticking with Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic. I know roster restrictions and all that, but it just doesn't make sense. On the weekend, they allowed 8 goals on 39 shots against Ottawa and Tampa Bay. Tristan Jarry, just, woof. I was in the camp for a while that you have to give Jarry an opportunity to play it out, to get hot, to string some starts together. I'm sorry, it's not happening. It's not happening. The Penguins are really going nowhere. They had a pretty nice little run from Thanksgiving Eve through the Christmas break. They went 9-3-1 in those games. They're 2-4-3 since. 6th loss in 7 games against Tampa. And they're doing some decent things. Ricard Raquel continued his excellent season, has 15 goals in his past 22, leads the team with 22 overall. They need to get Evgeny Malkin healthy. That's obviously a big thing. They got Philip Tomasino back on Sunday. Michael Bunting, hopefully he's okay from the car accident that he was involved in. All indications are that he is, and he'll be an important part as the Penguins get back to action. But the goaltending is the outlier. The goaltending is the problem. It has to be better, and they need to make a bold decision here. I'm looking at Joel Blomqvist. I don't know if it's time. In baseball, you kind of joke that there are some phantom injuries. Somebody will pull a hamstring, somebody will hurt something, but you have to get the kid involved. You can't just keep doing the same thing. It's sort of like the Steelers, and I feel like we say this a lot, even with the Penguins. What's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You're running Jarry out there, it's not improving. Ned's been a little bit better, but sum total, the Penguins aren't getting enough goaltending. They're spinning their wheels, and they need to find traction somehow. That's why I'd like to see them bringing Blomqvist. All right, that does it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this content and so much more. Again, heading down to Mike Tomlin in a little bit. Have a reaction video on tomorrow's First 10 from there, along with a couple other treats. Thanks for watching First 10, everybody.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.